Today is the 1918. It's the 19th of December. 18? Yeah, no. Mr. Mayor, please pay us.
Yeah.
I'm confusing the dates. So my name is Chris Vondo. I'm the spokesperson of the executive mayor. As you responded to the invite of the executive mayor today, this morning or last night, we're grateful that you are here to get an update, but also communicate the update in relation to the maintenance that Rand Water has sanctioned in Johannesburg, which is dubbed 86 hours shutdown. And of course, the executive mayor has decided to do an oversight in all our reservoirs, so that way, in the areas that were affected. So we're here at Randbeck Depot, which is also one of the areas that was affected, which is supplied by the reservoirs, Honeydew Reservoir and the Linden Reservoir. So the executive mayor today has commenced his oversight in relation to these reservoirs. So the mayor is here to give an update to the citizens of Johannesburg in relation to the work that Joburg Water has done in response to the maintenance that Rand Water has sanctioned. In the panel here, we have the MD of Joburg Water, Mr. Nchabeni Mukwebo, our longest serving bureaucrat in Johannesburg Water. And I'm sure you've seen him, ladies and gentlemen, responding to a number of interviews across the board, just to keep the citizens abreast in terms of the developments. We're also joined by the MMC for EISD, Environmental Department, Infrastructure and Service Delivery Department, which has an oversight over Joburg Water, pick it up, and City Power. His name is Councillor Jack Squailer, Mr. Water and Electricity. Mr. Mayor is the executive mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Dada Morero. I will hand over to him to brief the residents of Johannesburg through. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, MMC Squaila, and the CEO. Let me take this moment to acknowledge the work that Joburg Water has been doing, and appreciate the leadership that the CEO and his collective, Mr. Nchabeni, has been putting an effort towards ensuring that we can overcome all the challenges that we are faced with, and also respond to the challenges that would have happened as a result of the planned maintenance, the period between the 13th and the 16th of December. And this maintenance program itself, we think it will go a long way in terms of ensuring sustainability of our water supply to our residents in Johannesburg. And of course, it would have temporarily disrupted the normal operations and underscored the importance of our response mechanisms. I would like to reassure our residents that we are actively addressing these challenges through a series of strategic interventions designed to assist in the recovery of the affected water systems. And Johannesburg Water has been working diligently to ensure that water delivery continues effectively, especially to our vulnerable communities. As you know, we had the following interventions during this period: the reconfiguration of our emergency water truck services, increasing operational capacity to provide more than the initially planned 75 trucks to informal settlements, establishing 2 self-help filling points at Johannesburg Water depots at Southdale and Hambeck, ensuring that the residents have direct access to water resources. Identifying and utilizing strategically located fire hydrants across all regions as alternative filling points to our water trucks, strengthening our security measures with tactical escorts for our trucks to ensure safe transport of our water to those in need. And also importantly is our collaboration between ourselves, our councillors and members of the community to ensure we facilitate access to boreholes and other non-traditional water resources. I'm pleased, of course, to announce that we're already seeing signs of recovery in several systems, including the Commando, Eagle Nest, Randburg Waterfall, Vetpoki, Soweto, and Horizon. As already outlined, we are now beginning the process of reopening reservoir outlets, allowing us to restore supply as much as possible. And of course, this is not just a small task, it's a very big task. And I would like to commend the efforts of all involved, from the technicians to an ordinary a man at Joburg Water, and of course to all our communities and our councillors who participated in ensuring that we can provide alternative water to our people. And I also want to urge residents to continue to use water sparingly and adhere to the current level 1 water restrictions. Our collective efforts will not only help us recover quicker, but also ensure that we preserve the integrity of our water system for the future. I want to thank each and every one of you for your patience and understanding during this time. Together we will emerge from this situation stronger and better and equipped much better for the future. Thank you. Perhaps let me also outline, but I thought the CEO will outline the key areas that we are beginning to see water recovery and the systems that are still to recover. I think he can outline that. I'll touch just a few. In Soweto, we are seeing that Doornkop, though low, it remains stable, meaning that at least the supply of water, even if the reservoir is still low. I think the MD will deal with those because they're more technical to say which areas are still battling, which areas are low, and where we are recovering. And the MMC is also here to deal with any other questions that you may want to ask. Mr. Vondo, thank you.
I'll be fired, Mr. Mayor. I won't meet my KPIs. Thank you very much, MMC.
No, thanks, Chris. I think it's off.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. Okay. No, thanks, Chris. I think we, colleagues, let's appreciate the work done by the whole entire team of Joburg Water, led by the MD Mkwebo. As you know, that the rainwater maintenance would have finished just in the evening, day before yesterday. So we're intending to recover, after this coming weekend. But looking at where we are now, we are sitting at over 80% already now in the morning. We mean that by tomorrow morning, we will be having a very healthy, system within Johannesburg. But let us plead with our residents, in particular this area where we just visited today, where there are challenges of water, they forever, recover late, the Hestiel, the Crosby, the Commando system, and Robert Share. So those are the areas that we'll be monitoring from today up until Friday. But we won't go to any holiday until the whole entire network of Johannesburg has recovered. We've recovered miraculously very, very quicker than we thought we would. 86 hours of maintenance, that's 3 days. It's not a child's play. To recover from that particular outage, it takes give and take 2 weeks. But where we are now, I think we are in a better position. Apology for the mic. I don't know what's happening with it. It goes on and off. It's not me. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll project with your voice.
But I think from your mic here, you are able to capture our audios.
Yeah.
I think it's better that way. Okay. All right.
It's always easier to solve.
Yeah.
Which one
But
is this?
it's done. I don't want to relinquish power, that's why I don't want to solve.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, EM and MMC. So from the recovery point of view, technically, just to remind the residents of the city that the bulk supplier, they were doing their maintenance at two different areas. Basically, there was a maintenance that was talking to the Swarkopis pump station, which supplies the inner city in the main, as well as Berea, Yeoville, all the way to Parktown, and of course the other one for Ekenhof. Let me start with the inner city or the Swarkopis system. We are really progressing very well in terms of recovery. In the main, most of the area are receiving water from that particular system. The inner city itself, at our pump station, we are pumping at full capacity. You look at the area like Yeoville, we are also pumping, as well as Parktown, we have actually opened the supply about a day and a half back or so. Of course, within that area, there are small pockets, especially the high-lying area, that are still struggling, and the reason for that is that the system, when it recovers, it starts on the lower lying area. We also don't open the valve fully. It is all the part of the process of bringing the system back. As the days progresses, we get to a point where we're able to open the valve fully so that the high-lying area can also get water. But in the main, we are happy with the recovery process for that area, and we are monitoring very closely so that we can systematically, as we build the level within all those reservoirs that are supplied from Swarkopis, we are able also to make sure that we are pushing more water to those areas that are still not getting water. On the side of Ekenhof, this is where really the recovery process started 2 days back. When I say 2 days, in fact, we are not yet even at 2 days. We're about a day and a half because it started at 9 o'clock on the 17th after the work has been completed. So if you look at that particular areas or Soweto, we don't really have a major challenge at all. After a day and a half, we're seeing a very good progress in terms of all the reservoirs that supply Soweto. Of course, there are still pockets of reservoir that we are monitoring closely to make sure that we allow them to really get the necessary capacity, but all the reservoirs are supplying as expected. Of course, we still have a challenge in Crown Gardens. This is the south of Johannesburg. We have, as of this morning, we have opened the reservoir outlet and we are feeding the area, but we've opened it only at 50%. As I've indicated, it's part of the recovery process. And we're expecting that later in the evening to tomorrow morning, we should also start to pump in the tower for the Crown Gardens. So around south, the area that we are really monitoring closely is those areas that are get water from Crown Gardens to make sure that we get to a point where we start supplying fully to the reservoir zone and start pumping to the tower. On the area around Randburg and Rodiport, we've also seen a major progress. Of course, because yesterday we were at a point where we still had towers that were not really supplying, but today most of the towers are supplying. But of course, we've got pockets like in Linden 1, Linden 2, that we still need to, even though the reservoir pick up, reservoir Linden 1 being at 30%, Linden 2 at about 50%, we still have areas that are not getting water simply because as those reservoir picks up, we also need to go through the system and start bleeding the air out of the system so that we can be able to pressurize the system, because that's the way that we build up the system and make sure that all the area gets water. So we have technical teams on the ground and we'll be carrying on doing this work until we stabilize the system and be able to make sure that everyone is getting water. So the system that we are still going to monitor closely within the Ekenhof, of course, is the commando system, which we have started supplying. We're supplying from Brixton, Hestel 2 as well was open in the morning, but of course, because of the nature of the system, we have to carry on monitoring for the next few days simply to allow it to build. But we will be making sure that in those areas that we're able to supply from that system, we carry on supplying. As indicated by Executive Mayor, those areas that we're still having challenges, which mainly high-lying area, we will remain, our water tankers will remain there to make sure that the residents have access to water through water tankers. Thanks.
Thank you, MD. Thank you, Executive Mayor, MMC. I'll invite questions, but I'm sure already we've done questions on the other side. Maybe just as I invite note the hands, just to reinforce what the Executive Mayor said, there's been an extensive communication with the citizens through the councillors, a number of other platforms that have been created. On daily basis, Joburg Water has continued to update, to give status on where the systems are, where the maintenance is, and all the WhatsApp groups across Johannesburg and different platforms have been shared with the information from Johannesburg Water. As late as yesterday, Joburg Water did meet with the councillors of Johannesburg to give them an update on where the system, the maintenance is, following the completion of the maintenance. So yes, there might be areas where there's been no sufficient communication reaching out, but our understanding is that the councillors are working together with Joburg Water to be able to communicate and reinforce that message. The leadership sitting here has been extensively engaging with a number of stakeholders, including business. You can talk about Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industries. You can talk about inner city partnership forums. You can talk about many other platforms that this leadership has been engaging with. So I'm just trying to say that if there's an issue about communication as a question, please don't raise it as you love.
I want to raise it.
Okay.
Sorry, can I go?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay,
1, 2, 3.
Can you see from Times Live? My question is just around the overall update to the water system. What are the last times Joburg Water briefed us? You told us that we're under level 1 restrictions, and I heard the mayor reiterate that. But can you just give us an update on the situation, especially given the in the festive season, people are consuming more water? You had mentioned that there's a possibility that you might raise it. Is it something that you're looking at, or are you still confident that you're managing the situation well? Essentially, I just need an update on where we are, and are we any closer to increased restrictions, especially given the weather?
Okay.
Katla Sokhoto from Kaya News. Just a question around alternative water supply sources when the maintenance work began. I mean, we've certainly been on the ground when it started, and some community members, telling us that they couldn't find tankers, they didn't know where to go to find, or they knew but there wasn't, in fact there weren't any alternative at early on when the maintenance work started. So just clarification, were there some delays in alternative water supply sources?
Okay.
I wanted to ask, like earlier I spoke to you, Mayor, about dates and indications in terms of timelines for areas such as North Riding that still don't have any water. And I mean, I believe we went to one of the reservoirs, like the Honeydew Reservoir, that supplies water to that area. And if ever we could get an indication as to when should residents expect water, especially after today, after the site visits that you've had and the engagement you've had with the people on the ground at the reservoirs. And I know you said I mustn't raise the communication issue, but yesterday when I was on the ground, I spoke to a couple of councillors who raised that issue and said they would wish to have better communication with either the city or Joburg Water. Is there something that is being done there?
Okay. Definitely. No, thanks. I think it's the communication issue. Sometimes it becomes subjective in the sense that we have been on our toes in terms of communicating, especially to our ward councillors, understanding that they're the cold face of delivery. in the townships, you'll actually see videos of councillors directing where the water tankers should be, even directing queues as people come to collect their water. So it might not be entirely true that there's been lack of communication. In fact, we have been communicating outrightly. You'd know that for the last month of November, we communicated widely about the maintenance program and the dates thereof. So we think communities were informed. Yes, there would have been challenges. One, in terms of whether we're supplying enough tankers at the right time, at the right places. There would have been weaknesses to an extent that part of what we also did was to open up your fire hydrants, what we call hydrants, to try and help, because in most areas you do have them, so that as part of the water supply. Thirdly, we opened up our depots as centers also where people can go and receive water. There were challenges, yes, and in some instances, that is why we also had to ensure that our water tankers are also escorted to ensure that the smooth running, no criminals coming in between, and also avoid unnecessary or the narrative that would have suggested that some of the water come from wrong places is not right. So we had to address all those things because people started making stories about whether the water is clean. So it was important that we maintain that level of communication and security as we were providing this water to our communities. Katlego, I think that those are the alternatives that would have been there, but I think the MD would add on some of the alternatives we put in place. I think we are ready to give specific updates, and commitments are that you'll see that where we come from, we are satisfied that we'll be able to supply them, and the supply will be constant. So what will happen as part of trying to get the supply to the level where we want, you'd find that at night we'll switch off a particular area so that this area, another area can build up. So you'll have that thing perhaps for the next 4 days or so, just to get all the levels above 60%. In some instances, you'll get that it was 60% in the morning. In the afternoon around 4, it falls down because people are also harvesting, taking more than the normal water they harvest, because they are not probably uncertain whether they will have water over the weekend. So water harvesting is going to happen, and it will disturb the levels as we trying to get the reservoirs to the right levels. But we are confident, without any fear of contradiction, that by the weekend all areas that were affected by maintenance will be back to normal. Areas that might be affected, it will be areas where something has to do with the infrastructure. For example, Jekyll Creek, because it's an infrastructure issue, we have to go inside the pipes and check if the valves, which valve is a problem and what needs to be done to that valve, whether it has to be replaced or something. You are aware now we're trying to manipulate it so that there's water going through whilst we find a way of resolving the problem. I think the MD will give a general, but we think we're doing better. He has all the list of areas. Soweto is doing better now. There's 2 million people around Soweto, so it's doing better. Jabulani, Zondi, and there's 3 reservoirs there. And Chawela, they're beginning to do better. They were low, but we're showing an increase, which is good for us. And the noise, people are happy generally now in Soweto. In Middlelands, they have water, and so on and so on. Vetpochi, I think that's where I stay. It's very low. I don't have water myself. So we hope that it will recover by tonight or by tomorrow. Vetpoki will recover and we will also have water. Yeah, I think I've covered, but the MD and the MMC may want to add where I might have left. But we also thank the journalists for communicating, because if you monitor the stories, they were positive and reporting factually on what we've been saying, and we really appreciate that. It's our problem, all of us. It's a maintenance problem. MD?
Okay, thanks, Ian. So just to comment on the question from Kanyisile as to are we seeing a higher level of restriction? Because that's your question. We are doing very well before the maintenance. And I think in one of the media briefing that was held at our headquarters, we even started giving feedback. The same feedback we gave it last week when we had a session that was where we invited editors of media houses. So our immediate, before the shutdown, of course, because the issue that we're dealing now is as a result of shutdown that happened to deal with maintenance issue. The previous issue that we're dealing with for supply and demand, of course, we are going to be going back there once we stabilize the system, because we need to build up on all the good work that we've seen prior to this maintenance work. We were doing well in the sense that you may have heard that the demand for Joburg, if we look at the top 97% in volume of the meter that supply Joburg, we were hovering about 1,750 megaliters a day. So we were able to bring that down to just below 1,600 before the maintenance. And we saw that consistency in that for about 3 to 4 weeks, which is the type of demand that we want to see now in December. And by February, we want to take it down to 1,550. So the intervention simply that we've implemented, which involved also, one, appealing to the residents to come on board in terms of reducing the demand, the issue of managing the demand on our side through infrastructure, either PRV that we're busy with, which we're still busy with, the issue around the throttling during the night, all those interventions combined, they were really giving us those results. So once we stabilize the system, which we as the mayor indicated, we're aiming that within the next few days, we should have a system that's stable. We need to start going back there. We need on our side to adjust the system so that we build on the issue of reducing demand. Because that issue, we need to work on it. And once we do that, we won't really be talking about the higher level of restriction. And we need to do that together with residents so that we avoid the conversation of going to higher level of restriction. On the issue of the alternative water, to add EM, we had we increased our water tanker. After we realized that we were struggling in terms of the initial number, we increased them to 111. And of course, 111. You'll recall that what we've been saying is that 70% of the city was affected by this maintenance work. So 111 tankers, of course, will never be able to replace the entire system. So the issue is that we need to focus on putting the stationary tank a strategic point where all residents can be able to access them, and also work on the defined routes. So some of the feedback that we're getting from the residents is that residents will be saying, but I'm not seeing a water tanker at my street and so on. It's just not possible. We need to work on defined routes simply because we are talking about 70% of the city. So the other intervention that we had done for alternative, we also appealed, if you go back to all our statements, all our communication, we also appeal to residents to say, please residents, we know 70% of the city is massive. It becomes logistically very difficult to manage through the tanker because, one, there's traveling time, because now you are getting water from very far to bring it to where residents are. Secondly, of course, the system where you are getting it, because it's also impacted in one way or the other, you're getting water from a system that's operating at low pressure. It may take time to fill the tank. So hence our appeal also was that residents, please, as we start the the shutdown, can we make sure that you've stored water so that we don't see this rush to water tanker, especially in day 1 and 2? You know, those are some of the interventions that were put in place and also appealed to the residents to assist us. But those areas that are still affected now, we at least 85% or so of the city, we have managed to get some water there through the process of restoring the system. So it becomes easier to sort of divert all the tankers to those areas that are still struggling in terms of us giving the alternative supply. Thanks.
Can you see that
follow up. And it speaks to what you're saying about communication. So we've received an alert that apparently Joburg Water will no longer share reservoir levels. This was in Ward 84. Can you confirm this and elaborate? Because apparently there wasn't reason given, and it's a security issue. But can you confirm this? Can you say why? And does it not undermine what you're saying about being as communicated as possible?
Yeah, thanks very much for that. So this issue of the reservoir levels is not. There were, 1 or 2 depots that were sharing above what we are sharing as an organization. Every morning and every afternoon, we send out customer notices. With those customer notices, we distribute them through social media. We send them also to the WhatsApp groups for counselors. And in those customer notices, we really interpret the entire system of the city, especially focusing on those areas that we believe there may be challenges. Interpret the levels to say, what does this level mean? So we have found that if we just send the level as they are and say the reservoir at 20%, another reservoir is at 50%, this information is getting misinterpreted. So the best way is for us to interpret for residents so that we put correct information out there. So it doesn't necessarily mean that when we say we are not going to share the level as they are, there won't be information. We are saying let's decode this information and put in such a way that residents can be able to understand. Otherwise, people, when they start quoting this number, they are being quoted incorrectly, and they start really having misinformation going around. So those are some of the things that we are trying to manage by sending correct information that we have interpreted ourselves.
last one?
Last one.
All right. I just wanted to ask, the mayor said vet body today or tomorrow.
I don't know.
But
How far is vet body?
not riding, for instance.
Yeah.
6 days without water. Is there
Not
an
riding, how far?
indication
Yeah,
as
yeah.
to when
Not riding,
they
say,
might
we-
expect water
should be
in that
able-
area specifically? Because I've been engaging a lot with that area. That's why I'm asking about that.
Do you stay there?
They've been having water problems for a while. So I wanted to know if ever they can also be expecting water, and when can they expect that water? And then also, is there a reason why this maintenance, because residents understand why maintenance is pressing right now. They understand why the need for the maintenance is there. But is there a reason why it's so pressing right now? Was it done properly the last time? Are systems caving in? Is that why it's pressing to do it now?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
That question sounds, the first question sounds like you have an interest around Northgate there. Not riding. Are you staying there?
It's problematic that
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Mayor,
I'll try to show
Yeah,
them
thanks.
the
I think the
from the airport.
first issue that we need to explain so that everyone understands is how the water system works. I think the EM explained it and said it's not like electricity. You don't just switch the button, everything is back. Water system, the way it works, you need to be able to push the volume through the system. And by design water system, you're able to build capacity that you require mainly during the night. Because during the day, that's when demand happens. And during the night, you build your reservoir. So our expectation is that we should be able to be getting those systems that are still struggling back by weekend. And that's what we are working towards. the area that we are talking about, it's linked to it's supplied, I'm sure it's from Olivedale Reservoir, which is linked to Honeydew Reservoir. We were there at Honeydew Reservoir. When we were there, I think the reservoir was about 20-30%. So as that reservoir builds up capacity, we'll then be pushing water to Olivedale, which will then be able to start opening to the residents. But the important thing, of course, is for us to make sure that as we build this system, as the mayor said, those systems that we've been able to get them back, we'll be able to see how we manage them so that we can be able to push volumes or load to those systems that are still struggling.
Okay, Vondo.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the conclusion of this session, and enjoy the festive season. Tinano, Mr. Mayor, MD, and MMC. We are on the ground.